everybody. Dan Illman, Mike here. The DRF race of the day for Saturday, March the 11th, race number 11 at Tampa Bay Downs, where Kentucky Derby qualifying points are on the line in the Grade 3 $400,000 Tampa Bay Derby. Let's take a look at this field of 3-year-olds going 1.16 miles. Click or scan the QR code for race of the day access on mobile free formulator past performances. The 6 Tapit Trice, all eyes on him. We're going to learn a lot more about this 7-figure yearling. He's very well regarded for the Todd Pletcher barn, and he's won his last 2 starts in impressive fashion.
Yeah, almost has to go favored shipping into running this race, Dan. First stakes try for him, but he's getting progressively better with each start. He's already fast enough to be really, really tough in here. And it just feels like Pletcher, more than anything else, has found a really good spot for this horse to step him up for the first time.
Let's throw up the time form US pace projector, and we're expecting a fast pace in this big field. Zydeco is part of a fast pace in the Sam F. Davis, the local prep of the Tampa Bay Derby, before tiring. The entry mate, or the uncoupled stablemate of Tapit Trice, Schisturkin, should also show speed, as should Dreaming of Kona, a horse that was up close in the Sam F. Davis. The pace should be fast. Really, the key, Mike, is whether Tapit Trice, the number 6, is going to be last, because he wasn't great out of the gate last time.
Yeah, well, that to me, that's the one thing that Tapit Trice really needs to start figuring out here, probably sooner rather than later, Dan. And all 3 of his starts so far, they've all been 1-turn miles. And all 3 of those races, he just didn't get out of the gate very well at all in any of the 3. So he's got to get that figured out. A fast pace will obviously help him in here. He is stretching out around 2 turns for the first time, but he's really bred to get this far.
Another horse shipping in from Gulfstream Park is the number 1. That's Lord Miles, who earned a stakes placing 2 starts back in the Mucho Macho Man. I thought he ran well in that 1-turn mile. He was 4 wide in between on the backstretch, 3 wide on the turn. He was kind of grinding it out to get a piece. Last time out in the Holy Bull, maybe in a little bit too tight. Again, not a great break. And in against a solid horse, Rocket Can came back to run second in the Fountain of Youth with a 91 buyer. Maybe a little more focused this time with blinkers. I'd like to see him get out of the gate better.
Yeah, me too. Listen, I guess you could give him at least one more chance here, Dan. If nothing else, at least in my opinion, he has the benefit of being one of the 5 horses in here who didn't make their last start in the Sam Davis. So he's a little bit of a new face. Like you, I liked his debut. I thought he ran okay in the Mucho Macho Man. Kind of felt like he did his running that day when the race was already over, but he did make up a lot of ground at the end. I don't know what to say about his Holy Bull, Dan. He was just pretty bad in that race. He has the rail again. I suspect that he can do better, but he's going to have to take a pretty serious step forward here.
A horse that's perhaps lurking under the radar is the number 2, Classic Car Wash, who's done little wrong from 4 lifetime starts and is very comfortable at this distance. You liked him a little bit in the Sam F. Davis. He ran quite well at 12-1. He got the pace set up and he was running on at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did probably, I don't want to say the best he can do. I'm sure that there's more in the tank for this horse going forward. But on that day, I just kind of feel like he did the best that he could do. He got it overall a pretty clean trip in that race. A little bit of steady on the first turn of that race. But otherwise, a good trip into a fast pace. He did his best with it. He was never a real threat getting up for third at the end. He ran fine in there, Dan. I wouldn't totally give up on him. I'm kind of down on that Sam Davis as a race overall. I kind of wanted new faces in here.
Another horse coming out of the Sam Davis is the 3, Classic Legacy, who won 2 starts back in his final start as a 2-year-old, sprinting over the slop at Aqueduct. And I expect of the horses coming out of the Sam F. Davis for this horse to do a lot better, because I really think Bill Mott was using the Sam F. Davis Tampa Bay Derby. I think he's a lot fitter for this race and might get the right setup.
That's a fair way to look at him for sure, Dan. That was his 2-turn debut last time. And, listen, he wasn't ever a real threat to win that race, but he was one of the horses who was basically wide throughout the running that day. And he was staying on okay at the end of that race. I don't know. I'm not thrilled with his first 3 career starts. I mean, he ran fine in some of those. The only win so far when he's 1-5 on a sloppy track against a pretty bad field. He ran okay last time. He can obviously improve in this race. The question you have to ask yourself is, how much do you think he's going to improve in this race? And then what kind of price would you take on it? Because he feels to me like one of the horses coming out of the Sam Davis who could actually take a little money.
Number 4, Groveland finished best of the Sam F. Davis horses coming back in the Tampa Bay Derby. He finished ahead of 6 of these when finishing second. We're going to watch the stretch drive, and Groveland was relatively close to this pace. We're going to see him in the stretch sort of dive down inside, and he's going to end up finishing second. I thought he ran well, Mike. He backed up his prior performance at Tampa Bay, where I thought he was a no-excuse second. But if you don't like the Tampa Bay, this horse is going to take some money and might be an underlay. He likes the track, distance is okay, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, probably. We'll see. He does take a lot more money this time, it seems like, anyway. Then he was over 20-1 in that Sam Davis we just watched. He'll be shorter in here. We'll see how much shorter. If nothing else, overall, I thought his trip was a good one in the Sam Davis, but we already talked about how fast the pace was, and he was pretty close to it all the way around the track there. So that wasn't a poor performance at all.
And if you think Tapit Trice is going to take all the money, and I really think there's a chance in here, he might go off around even money or 6-5. Maybe Groveland gets lost in the shuffle, and he has run well in his last few races. Mikey Bananas is the number 5. This horse was second in his most recent start. He was no match for Kings Barnes, an odds-on winner who was very impressive that day. Mikey Bananas, though, stepping back up into stakes company, is going to have to do a little bit more.
Yeah, a slight step in the right direction there in his first time around, 2 turns on dirt. He's gone long on turf in the past. I don't know. We'll see, Dan. To me, he just looks like one of the horses who was pretty hard to make in here. He's a one-time winner. That only win came going 4.5 furlongs on the all-weather surface. And he just, to me anyway, hasn't run a race yet that's going to make him really competitive in here.
Here's your morning line favorite, Tapit Trice. He's won his last 2 starts, a $1.3 million Keeneland September yearling by Tapit. This will be his first start around 2 turns. He handled the 1-turn mile very well in his last 2, including this race at Gulfstream against first-level allowance horses. He didn't break well from the rail. Louis Saez got him to the outside. The horse on the lead is Schisturkin, who got away with a pretty moderate, albeit pressured pace, but Tapit Trice just ran right by him in the stretch.
Yeah, this is an impressive win for this horse, and a second consecutive impressive win for this horse, as a matter of fact. And he was really good breaking his maiden, I thought. 2 starts back over a muddy track, and he was even better last time. Yeah, again, he didn't get out of the gate well. That's the 3rd time in a row. We'll hope that he figures that out going forward. But once he got out into the clear early on in that race, I mean, he just looked like he was going to win from a long way out. He just flat overpowered Schisturkin, who, by the way, is a major contender in this race.
The 7 is Freedom Road, who made a successful seasonal debut sprinting at Tampa Bay and showed off a nice finish in that shorter race. Let's watch Freedom Road. This is a first-level allowance seat, and it's his first start since October. You see him swinging to the far outside. He's going to run them all down late. It seems like he is improving with each and every start. Likely will get the right pace set up. 2 questions. How good is he? How far does he want to go?
I'm concerned about him stretching back out in distance for this Dan, but I'll agree with his connections for taking the shot here and running him in this race and giving him, one more chance to go a distance of ground. He's all sprint on the bottom of his pedigree. He's the first foal from this dam. This dam could run a little bit, but she was a pure sprinter. So it makes me question how far this horse wants to go. That being said, I really liked his return from the layoff last time. He made a huge run in that race to win from last. It was not a particularly fast pace. This horse got forced in at the start and wound up pretty far back early. Really liked the run that he put in that day. I'm not convinced he wants to go this far, but I like them taking a shot in this race in particular.
And very sharp and underrated connections. Greg Sacco's an excellent trainer. The 8 is Dreaming of Kona, who was placed first via disqualification in the Mucho Macho Man, then was part of that fast pace before tiring in the Sam F. Davis. Was he found out in the Sam F. Davis, Mike, especially considering a similar race flow here?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I sort of looked at it. I mean, I know that he was close to a pretty solid pace in that race, but so were some of the others who finished well ahead of him in there. It was a very disappointing performance. I'll just say disappointing if you liked him going in. He's a horse who, was placed first in the Mucho Macho Man 2 starts back, and he ran fine that day, but he wasn't best in that race. He just inherited that win via disqualification. I don't know. I just feel like he's one of the horses who's in very, very tough here.
The number 9 is Schisturkin, the sort of other Todd Pletcher trained runner, although he was favored, interestingly enough, over Tapit Trice in that allowance race we saw you where Tapit Trice ran off of the screen. He's by Violence, a red-hot stallion who had 2 Kentucky Derby prep winners last week. This horse was a solid debut winner, going 7/8 of a mile, took a little bit of pressure, was bumped by a horse trying to sneak through along his inside to 3/16, and then kept right on going. Couldn't really find the excuse last time out, but I have a feeling he's going to run a lot better in here, and he'll get the jump on his stablemate.
I can see that happening. We'll see how fast this pace gets. You know, he's going to be forward and be part of that pace. So we'll see if that, works against him at all. If nothing else, he's like all the other horses who are sort of shipping in here to try this race. I think it's a great spot for him and for Pletcher to try to stretch him out around 2 turns. The question you have to ask yourself, Dan, is how much can he improve off of that most recent start? Because we saw the replay before, and anybody can go back and check it out. He ran fine in there, but he was no match for Tapit Trice.
The number 10 Champion's Dream showed quality as a 2-year-old. Graded stakes winner. He won the Nashua going a 1-turn mile at Aqueduct. And in the Sam F. Davis, he was well regarded for trainer Mark Casse. Well, things did not go right at all. He lost a shoe. He came back with a sore foot. It looked like he was going to be off the Kentucky Derby trail. Seems to be doing well. He's back in this race. Can you excuse that last start, considering all the things that happened to him?
I mean, I can't, but I wouldn't argue too hard with anybody who wanted to do that. I actually liked this horse a little bit as a 2-year-old. He didn't run any real fast races, but outside of the Champagne where he was pretty bad, his other 2 starts I both thought showed a little bit of promise. I hated his Pasco first time out for Casse this year, even though he only got beat, a neck or whatever it was in there. I still didn't think that he ran that well. And then he was just terrible last time. I guess they have excuses for it, and they're going to try to bring him back here and give him a chance to redeem himself. I'm not buying into it, Dan, but I hope he runs better.
Champion's Dream was beaten a short margin by Zydeco, the number 11, who just looks like a very fast sprinter, and they tried to stretch him out from the Sam F. Davis. He drew a tough outside post position. He had to be quarter horsed out of the gate to make the front, and all things considering, he stayed on pretty well. Now, he draws another tough outside post. There's speeds to his inside, and the distance is still a question. I think he's a very likable sprinter, and I'm looking forward to him cutting back in distance down the road.
That's a good call. I would agree with that. He is one of the horses, though, coming out of the Sam Davis, if you want to try to take some horses out of that race anyway, Dan, maybe he's just one that you should, stick with for one more race in here. It feels like he could be a good price again. All things considered, in the Sam Davis, this horse ran pretty well in that race to only be beaten 3+ lengths after setting a fast pace and having to be used early just to make the early lead. I mean, I don't know. He's not the kind of horse that I want to be betting money on in this race, but if you told me I had to take somebody from the Sam Davis, he'd be in contention to be one of those horses.
Prairie Hawk completes this field. He took some money in the Sam Davis. He was bet down to 8-1 off 2 victories, although, boy, his win 2 starts back couldn't have gotten with a better setup in a 3-horse field controlling a glacial pace. Now he has to go from an outside post position. He has to rebound off sort of a subpar performance. I'll take a wait-and-see approach. He's so lightly raced, we probably haven't seen his best.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, he's another horse who could be a big price in here, and maybe you just want to give him one more chance out of the Sam Davis, where he was pretty bad, a little bit tight early in that race. But after that, I just thought he got a really good trip and didn't run. We'll see if he can redeem himself here. His prior 2 starts were okay.
And before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. And for this week, one time only, subscribe and give us your top pick in the comments section for the Sam F. Davis and win this very sporty Daily Racing Form hat. Now, I know Mike should be the one modeling this sporty hat because, to be honest, Mike, the snow is getting a little bit lighter up top on the peak. But still, this is a really nice hat. And at the end of the day, subscribe and comment. Top pick time for the Tampa Bay Derby. Tapit Trice has to get out of the gate. I'm a little bit worried about that, but I really like the way he finished off his last race. He is built for distance. Unfortunately, the price is not there. I have a feeling Schisturkin's going to run okay.
Yeah, I don't know that it's going to matter even if he breaks last again in this race, Dan. It's just a really good spot for him. He doesn't have to improve at all to beat this field. He's supposed to get better with time and distance. I'm not betting against him.
6791 for Mike, 6914 for me. It's the Tampa Bay Derby, Kentucky Derby prep race. Best of luck. nice hat.